We're going to be working with chocolate, and you and your team are going to be making a roller coaster model entirely out of this wonderful product. So what I have here, this is all a fair trade chocolate. I have a 75% dark chocolate, but at the moment it's unmelted. We have to melt it down so then we can use it to make our track sections. As you can see here, I've melted the chocolate. Now, an important thing that we must do is heat our chocolate up to 48 degrees. That melts all 5 different fat crystals in the chocolate. We melt our chocolate over a bain-marie, so I've got a pan on a stove with hot water. You don't want to have the water too hot, you want to have it around about 60 degrees, simmering nicely. The problem if the water's too hot is it can crystallise the sugars in your chocolate. So it's really important just to bring that chocolate up slowly and just bring it to that melting point using a thermometer taking up to 48 degrees. So here I have my warm chocolate. This is the chocolate which we've melted to 48 degrees. We now need to rapidly cool this down to 26 degrees using our thermometer, taking the temperature at all times, and then bring that back up to 30, which is to temper. So how we do this is, each of you should have got one of these plastic sheets on your table, or several of these. We're going to place this over the top of our granite. We're using granite or marble because it's naturally cold, and it's going to bring that temperature down nice and quick. So we're taking our chocolate, which is at 48, we're going to pour 2/3 of this out, roughly 2/3 to be exact, out onto the granite, as you can see, leaving about 1/4 to 1/3 in the bowl there. We're then going to be spreading that out onto the sheeting there, and then we're going to be cooling that down to 26. It's important to get it to 26 because what's happening here is you're calibrating the different fats in the chocolate. But you don't need to worry about all the technical stuff, just bring that down to 26, mix that back with a slightly warmer chocolate, which will give you the finished temperature of 30 degrees. I'm just going to cool this down. Okay, the chocolate has now come down to 26 on the sheeting, so I'm going to now mix this back in with my slightly warm chocolate which I've left in the bowl, which will give me a finished temperature of 30 degrees. So as you can see, it's nice and easy to use the sheeting because we can discard that. We might get a little bit of chocolate on our hands, but that's about it. Squeeze it like a tube of toothpaste. I'm going to get rid of that. And now what we need to do is mix the two temperatures, because we've got the warm chocolate in the bowl there and we've got the cool chocolate being added to it. And what we basically think about it like mixing paint. You need to mix it really, really well just to emulsify those fats and temperatures. And that should give us a final temperature of 30 degrees. Now we're ready to start making our chocolate track. Okay, so before we can even handle any chocolate or get started on the really fun part, we need to plan our track. What's it going to look like? What features is it going to have? So you should have all got some card, pencils, rulers. So a little bit of planning is going to be needed before we can even get started. So what I'm doing here is I'm drawing lines. I've got to make sure that the width of the track is all accurate, so when I'm drawing the sections of track, they all butt and marry up at the end. That's going to make the track flow really, really nicely at the end, and that's what you're going to be ultimately judged on as well. So what we need to do now is we need to cut the sections of track which we've drawn on our bits of card or paper. So one really important thing is when you are making your sections of track that you've got lots of straights, lots of curves and bends, because your track might differ slightly when you're actually putting the design together. So to have a few extra sections as well, it's really handy because it can just help join up the track at the end and making sure that you've got all the right angles that you need. As you can see here, I've done sort of a little hairpin, got straight there, I've got a curve there. These can be just used as templates, so these can be used and cut several times to make lots of different sort of corners. So you don't necessarily need to cut lots and lots of different corners, 1 or 2 different angles, some different sized and lengths of straights as well would be really handy. Now we're ready for the fun. We've got our chocolate which is already tempered up. We've got all our equipment that we need for making our sections of track, we have our acetate and palette knife. So what we're going to do now is pour out the tempered chocolate onto the acetate, making sure we get a good thick coverage, which is really important. You want a couple of millimeters thick ideally. When you're spreading it out, make sure you get it all the way to the corners as best you can. The most important thing about this is making sure you get it nice and even. What you don't want is thin edges, because that's going to lose the structure of the track. So pushing it all the way out to the edge, and if you put your fingers on the blade like this, you can get a nice finish on the top, and again it just presses the chocolate out nice and evenly, ready for cutting our sections, which is where our templates are going to come to use in a minute. So what we're going to do now, we've had our tempered chocolate which we've poured out onto the acetate, we've spread it nice and thin, we've got our sections cut. So just before the chocolate starts to set off, and you'll know when that time is right, because it'll just start to glaze over the top, it'll still be a little bit flexible. We're going to use our templates and we're going to pop them on top of the chocolate, and while it's still just about ready to cut, we're going to cut around the templates, and that's going to give us, once that's fully set, that's going to give us the sections of track that we've cut from our templates. And by using these templates, we're making sure that all the time the edges are the right thickness for the actual track itself, so it's going to look amazing. So as you can see here, I'm just using the tip of the knife. Now it's really important that your chocolate is not too soft, but then again you don't want it so it's still wet and it's going to stick to the blade when you drag it, and it's also going to stick to your templates as well. So you can see here, I'm just using these templates to cut the various sections of track, and once these are fully set, these will literally just peel off the bits of acetate, and then we can start assembling our track. So I'm going to show you how to make a tunnel out of chocolate. You should have got some tubes like this somewhere in the room, perhaps on your table. What you need to do is put the acetate onto the tube onto the acetate, making sure that you make a little measure line so you know how far round the acetate needs to go. So I know now that's the thickness I'm going to need, and then it doesn't need to be totally accurate, but just a sort of rough cut where it needs to be, because when we take this out of the tube later, it's going to create a clean break along that line. So once we've got that, I know now that that can go into my tube, and this is going to hold it together later on. So we're going to slide this in, which I'm going to show you now, and I know I've got the right size because I've measured it on the tube. So I've already, here's one I prepared earlier, got some chocolate I've already put onto the acetate, as you can see here. So what I can do now is make sure the wet side is obviously on top, is I'm just going to this is where it becomes quite a lot of fun, and it is going to get messy. You are going to get chocolate on your hands, there's no two ways about this, and you're just going to slide this tube onto the large tube just like that. That's going to kind of hold it together. You can slide another one on the other end to give it a bit more stability, and we're just going to leave that for about 5 to 10 minutes to set. Once chocolate's tempered, it sets off very, very quickly, so only temper as much as you can manage. So I'm now going to show you how to do a loop out of chocolate. So you're going to cut yourself a length of the acetate, making sure obviously if you use your template to make sure the thickness is the same as the acetate. What you're then going to do is take some of the chocolate, the tempered chocolate, and you're going to put a line down the middle or the centre of the bit of acetate, and then you're going to spread it till it comes all the way out to the edge. And once you've got chocolate tempered, and you've got it on this acetate, you can bend it, twist it, whatever shape that you want to do using the chocolate, you can. You can see there, just run your fingers down the outside. If you wanted to, you could just pop it over the top of one of your tubes like that, and that could make a nice little feature or a little bump. Or if you wanted to, you have to work quite quickly with it because it will set off quite quick. You can make a loop, and how you make a loop is pretty simple really. You just, over you go like this, making sure that you get it accurate and get the flat bottom on it. And you're just going to need to get somebody to hold that for about 5 minutes, just until that starts to set off, and that will then give you your loop. So as you can see, this one's completely set off. If I peel that off, which has come away really easily because as chocolate sets, it shrinks as well, so it should literally shrink back, and you can see now I've got my solid bit of chocolate ready for my assembly line. As you can see here, all these sections are coming off really nice and easily, and you can see that we're already getting an idea of what our chocolate track is going to look like, and we're going to then can start sticking these bits of track together, forming the final result. So we're now ready to start joining our sections of track. So you're going to take your 2 sections of track. We have a pan, which is your bain-marie, with a plate which is keeping warm on top. And you're going to take your 2 ends, and we're just going to chamfer the edge on top of the warmed plate. Because what we're looking for, and there will be bonus points for the tracks that are completely joined together. Now you can either do this by joining them, which makes a bit more of a seamless link by doing it this way, or you can use some tempered chocolate in a piping bag to join the sections of track. So we need to make some struts and supports if we want to get a bit of height onto our roller coasters. How we're going to do this is using matchmakers. Open up a fresh box. We've managed to eat, the film crew, most of these ones, so try and keep them away from the rest of your team. So what we're going to do is, as you can see here, we've started to make the A-frames for the supports. Just going to take the 2 ends, dip them in some tempered chocolate, break one in half, dip each end into the chocolate like that, and we're just going to stick that on there and let that set off, and that's going to become struts and supports for any of the features that we want to get a bit of height on. Okay, so here we go, we have the final result. As you can see, many features from around the park. I've got the stealth here, I've got a loop from Colossus, I've got an attempt at doing the saw ride here, I've got my tube and lots of sort of elevated stuff as well that I've done. So what we're looking for you guys to do is come up with your own roller coaster with your own special features. It would also be fantastic to see some roller coaster cars to go with this, and you should somewhere around the room, maybe on your table, have some sugar paste. And I want you to think of sugar paste like Play-Doh. This stuff is malleable, it's pliable, you can pretty much make anything you like out of it. So if you want to make some characters or whatever you want just to add features to your roller coaster, that would be fantastic as well. We're also looking for you to come up with a poster to promote your roller coaster. So we do have some blackboards around the room with some short marker pens, and we just like you to design your own poster to accompany your actual creations that you make on the day. Well, that's it from me. You've got all the skills, all the resources, everything you need to come up with your final roller coaster design. So good luck. I know the team are looking forward to putting on a great event for you. Ask them any questions that you have as well, and let's have some really creative roller coaster designs.